with Vicente, and we're going to talk about his experience from relocations between Spain to Dubai to now, Vicente, I believe you're in Germany too, right?
Yeah, that's right, Michael. That's correct.
Oh, fantastic. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for inviting me to your podcast, Michael. So I'm Vicente, as you said. I come from Spain. I'm 44 years at the moment, and indeed, I'm based in Berlin. I'm based in Germany. I'm working for Nike Germany here. I came to Berlin 2 years ago, and that was my sixth relocation process or my 10th relocation process, if you consider those relocations back to my home country. So yeah, I started those relocations in 2003, 20 years ago. I was studying at my hometown university in Zaragoza, and I got a scholarship to study abroad for 6 months. Then I moved to the Netherlands for 6 months. It was a truly nice experience, too short maybe back then. So then I came back to Zaragoza, to my hometown, and I started developing my professional career. After 4 or 5 years, I decided to study a master in international management in Madrid, Spain, as well. That master degree was endorsed by the Spanish government, and some students would be offered with the opportunity to work at one of the Spanish embassies worldwide. So
Okay.
then back then, I took them up. And as I said, I come from a small town or very small town back then. And then I took them up and I said, okay, which are the destinations to where it is unlikely or very unlikely that I would be able to travel by myself?
Mhm.
Because students of the master degree were allowed to express their preferences on the destinations that they would like to have. So
That's
then I took them up.
amazing.
Yeah, indeed. So I took them up and I said, okay, probably I will never have the chance to go to Tokyo, to Japan. I would never have the chance to go to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I would never have the chance to go to Sydney, Australia. So those were my three preferences. And yeah, I was lucky enough to go to Tokyo. Actually, I spent almost 2 amazing years in Tokyo. And then after that, I developed some kind of taste for relocation experiences and the
Mhm.
benefit that you get out of them. And then during my professional career, I moved to Germany 2 times, also Netherlands 2 times, Dubai. So yeah, that's kind of
That's
my experience in a
phenomenal.
nutshell.
What an amazing experience. So, how many countries in that? We have your origin from Spain, and we have Netherlands and Germany and Tokyo. Am I missing any countries? That's four already.
Yeah, I also had a short stay in Dubai, so that makes five. Yeah.
Right. Oh, wow. Fantastic. And you mentioned Nike. Congratulations on the 2027 being Germany's supplier for that. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Mikey. That was quite a big milestone for the brand indeed. Indeed. Looking
Very
forward to
exciting.
start our partnership with the German Federation. Yeah.
Very exciting. So through all these experiences, I love that you've relocated from different points of views, from like education, but as well as from your professional career. Is there any moment during one of these times that kind of stands out in your mind as either an experience, a learning experience, or something that you just remember very fondly of through relocating to any one of these locations, whether it's Netherlands, whether it's Tokyo, or even in Germany?
Yeah. So I guess I could share with you a few memorable, still very funny moments that happened, in these relocation processes. But to me, it was more of an ongoing experience in a sense that what I cherish the most from, these relocation experiences are actually the kind of feelings and emotions and learnings that come with them, the people that you meet along the way, actually, and how those experiences help you to kind of shape your personality. So
Yeah.
actually, thanks to those experiences, and as I said before, I come from a very or back then very small town in Spain called Zaragoza, and back then 20 years ago, I probably would see myself as a kind of very narrow-minded person. And back then I had never had the chance to explore the world, and sometimes one thinks that his own, beliefs or ways of doing things are the only ones or the right ones. And actually, once you start, meeting other cultures, having other experiences, with different kinds of people, different backgrounds, different cultures, you realize that actually, those different cultures and ways of doing things are also equally valid as yours. And actually, you start, let's say, including some of those behaviors in your own, let's say, personality, as
Mhm.
well as becoming way more open-minded than I was 20 years ago. So that's basically what I take from all my relocation experiences. Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember, like, are there any specific habits that you picked up that you were talking about from like a unique let me give you an example. And this is kind of, it's ridiculously silly, but and I didn't recall it was such a big issue until we were actually at a clothing store. And we're just looking around, shopping around, and I took one of the shirts up, and then when I put the shirts down, I folded it, but we fold it in a way that's quite popular in Asia and Korea. Whereas instead of like in the US where you lay the shirt down, fold the arms in, all that kind of stuff, we actually pinch the corners and kind of just do it's all you have to see it to understand it, but it's a way of just folding that's apparently very unique. And I remember someone looking at me like, "What the hell is that? What was that?" So it's interesting how you incorporate these different elements when you experience different cultures and different ways of life. And it may not sound so awe-inspiring or transformational, but I remember my first assignment when I was in South Korea. This is the first time I was living overseas. Travel and stuff like that is very different. When you actually live there, you're absorbing life, daily life. You start getting your own routines, and then you realize like, oh my God, I'm halfway around the world. And for me, it was a point that I remember hearing in the back of my mind. I said, wow, this is their world too. And by that, I was just looking at just a day in life in Seoul, Korea, with people moving and street lights going on and off and cars going. And in the US at the time where my family was, it was pitch dark and everyone's dead asleep. And I just remember stepping out of like, I can't believe this whole world existed. And I didn't even knew that. Like back home, people would have been sleeping. And I know that sounds very simple, but when you grasp that and you understand that, hey, this is their world too, that their beliefs, their friendships, their relationships, their jobs, their companies, all that stuff is real to them as my home was real to me. I was just mind blown. I was like, I couldn't fathom how amazing that was.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as you said, probably it's quite different to travel for holidays to any destination that to live in that destination. And actually that gives you, I mean, when you live in different places, you get, more time to reflect on different behaviors and attitudes that you didn't have before. So yeah, to give you some examples, probably from my time in Japan, I learned to be more patient, more respectful with the environment and with elderly people, and
Mhm.
also be more punctual, which is, coming from
Oh wow.
Spain. So that's something I still remember the first time I met one of my Japanese friends. So, for us, for the Spanish culture, like being 15 minutes late is still being on time. So I had that kind of mindset. So then I arrived not 15, but 10 minutes late. And
Mhm.
that Japanese friend of mine told me something like, well, we think that that's a kind of lack of respect to the person that you're
Wow.
about to meet. And actually, at first you find it a little bit offensive, but then you start thinking,
Mhm.
and actually, yeah, I mean, he's right. I mean, you could perfectly see that as a lack of respect for the other person. So that actually, is still stuck in my head, and
Mhm.
I since then I try to be punctual every time I meet someone. So yeah, that's what I learned from Japan, even from, let's say, German and Dutch cultures. I learned to be more straightforward. Sometimes,
Mhm.
giving direct feedback is also, quite positive. Also to deal with things that they come. Spanish culture, Spanish people, we tend to complain quite a lot about, everything. And then, when you probably in other cultures like the German or the Dutch culture, they don't complain that much, but they, deal with stuff that happens. And that's something that
Mhm.
I found inspiring, that resonated with me. And that I still apply to my day-to-day life. So yeah.
I love that aspect of choice. I feel that it's often when you grow up in one place or one environment, a lot of these habits can be more absorbed rather than quote unquote learned because they're really not intentional, right? Just everybody around you is doing it. So maybe you never even question or you never even think about like these type of aspects. But then when you get plopped into different ways of living and different ways of viewing the world, you start to step back and be like, wow, actually, I have a choice in this situation. I love the example about time, right? How is time reflected in different cultures? You actually now have a choice of like, which one do I personally value? Which one do I associate with? And I think that's such a blessing and an opportunity to have because it gives you not just that exposure to have a more rounded or empathetic worldview, but it also enriches your life because now you're choosing things based on what you personally believe and you personally feel that you value. And you're like, you know what? This is me. This is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I want to attribute to my lifestyle. And to start adopting these things. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's very cool to hear that. You mentioned before we were talking that you developed a strategy for determining whether a relocation opportunity is right for you. And you've done a lot of different types of relocation. Some people may have only had experience from their job or, maybe only education. But you've had a great array of different types of relocations and different stages in your life. So I'd love to understand a little bit about this formula that you developed and what is that? Like, how do you assess whether a relocation is right for you?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so yeah, I developed a kind of formula to assess whether, let's say, a professional opportunity abroad, it's going to be good for me. It's actually worth pursuing or not. And so basically, I compare that kind of decision to be, to sit down in a kind of chair or four legs. So in order to be comfortable, those four legs need to be, steady, firm, in place, so that you feel okay with your decision. So I see those four legs or four drivers of my decision as, first of all, the role itself, and the development opportunities that it might present for you, and is it going to be good for your career or not? Then the kind of relationship that you or the feeling that you have with your manager to be, how that how that kind of connection that you have during a kind of interview process. Then the culture of the company and the team dynamics, and then the destination, the location itself. So I put the location at the same level as those are the three professional aspects to actually decide whether a relocation opportunity is good for me or not. So the logic is that if those four drivers are in place, then probably you're gonna or I'm gonna feel comfortable with my decision, and I'm gonna sit down, enjoy, and relax, and make the most of that relocation experience. If one of them is missing, you can still balance yourself in a way that you feel kind of more or less comfortable. But if
Mm.
two out of those four drivers are out, maybe a relocation opportunity is not good for you, or maybe you should start, you should stand up from that chair
Mm.
and trying to find something else. Yeah.
I love the idea of balance and stability because that's one of the things that, to be frank, you lose when you move to a different place. And, a lot of times it's different country gets the more focus, but even when you're moving to a different city, a different location, you're uplifting your whole life. And the things that provided balance to you, whether it was social, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, or even financial stability, you had a sense of identity, a sense of comfort, a sense of who I am in my environment. I'm competent, I can work through it. And then you get put into a new location. You're like, wow, I didn't realize how important these things are. So I love your analogy and the four legs of a stool to provide balance because maybe one or two may not be there sometimes or may not be ideal. And you can work with that because you can balance on those. But it's really important to know what those key core issues, or not issues, those key core elements are to give your life balance. And so just to summarize, it was career opportunity, it was the leadership and the
Yeah.
team, and it was the location where you're going to.
Yeah, and in that kind of logic, location is it's critical, and actually it's quite important to do some research on actually on what you can expect from that location. First of all, actually try to do an assessment of what's important for you in terms of location. So what do you value from the place in which you are, and actually what are the things that you're going to miss from that location if you relocate, and what are the maybe the new things that you're going to find in that location that are going to be gratifying. But it's quite important to do some research and understand how a very good day and how a very bad day will
Yeah.
look like in that new location. So yeah, I mean, thanks to nowadays, you can leverage technology to do that. There are, social networks, the internet is also there. So it's quite easier to do some research on what you can expect from that new location, but it's critical to do your homework and to understand where you're going, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what we focus on with clients and customers that we work with as well, because the idea of you don't know what you don't know. And when you get into the location, like we were just talking about a minute ago about different values, incorporating those into your life, a lot of times those elements may have been more subjectively observed or absorbed. And when you're putting into a new place, you're like, wow, actually having, let's say greenery is really important to me to have a place to jog, to exercise. That's super important to me. So for other people, it may not be. It may be the ability to just walk down from your apartment flat and go to a grocery store without having to have the complications of navigating, you know, in Shanghai. I remember we had, by the time I left, I think we had 20 plus or 26 subway lines. So it's just trying to navigate all of that, and every year is growing. The map is always changing, all that kind of stuff. I forget the exact number, but it was a lot of subway lines. So I can understand that depending on your situation, depending on where you're going, if you don't assess what's important to you, then it's very difficult to make sure that you have that assurance when you're in location. And unfortunately, a lot of times location, it kind of gets the spotlight of the decision making, like I can imagine, and I've talked to a lot of individuals that they're excited before they go, like, oh, we have an opportunity to go to Berlin. This is going to be so amazing. I've always wanted to see Berlin, or they're going to London or something like that. It's like, oh, we get to see Big Ben and all that. And the idea of this excitement opportunity, which it is, there's a lot of part of that. But to your point, there's the ups and then there's the downs. So see it on a sunny day, see it on a cloudy day, and know like what is going to help to support you through that. So one of the questions I have for you in kind of that regard is that with our company BetterGo, we actually match individuals with what we call mobility mentors, people that have relocated before, they have psychology backgrounds, therapy, etc., but they're acting as that guide for individuals before they head out during transition and even finally into their location where they're moving to help support them through their transitions. What do you think about that? Do you think that would be an important part to a relocation, or how would that impact your relocation experience?
Yeah, definitely. Like, actually, I wish I had, that kind of opportunity like 20 years ago. That would probably have made my life way easier. But so basically, what you see normally in relocation processes, and especially when a company is supporting you in that relocation processes, is that probably a company or companies provide you with a relocation agent, which is great in terms of doing all the paperwork and the logistics. I mean, that kind of role is priceless and it's great to have. But then there is a kind of missing piece in terms of the emotional side of a relocation. So that kind of, yeah, getting to know someone that went through the same experience, that can feel some empathy for you in a sense of, okay, I know how it feels like, rest assured that this is going to get better. I mean, make sure that actually you are equipped mentally and emotionally to go through a relocation process. So the reality is that sometimes or many times relocation agents don't have that kind of skill, mostly because they are locals who sometimes never experience a relocation process themselves. So having someone there, being able to feel some empathy and being able to help you navigate through the emotional ups and downs of a relocation based on experience, that's something that I really adds value to any relocation process. Definitely, definitely.
Awesome. One of the another questions that we have here is that in terms of reverse culture shock, because you've gone overseas, you've gone to different countries, but you also came back home. So from that perspective, were you expecting it when you went back to Spain for the first time? Did you have reverse cultural shock? And if so, how did you find ways to deal with it?
Yeah, actually, that's a very good question, Michael. And sometimes when you make, I mean, at least in my first relocation processes, I had never thought of that, process of going back to my homeland. And
Mhm.
actually, that reverse relocation is something that one needs to keep in mind. And I'm thinking of my own experience, especially when I moved to Japan. Somehow and back then I'm talking about 2008, so it was not that easy to communicate with your family, friends, and beloved ones. So you tend to believe when you live far away that once you come back, things are going to be exactly the same as they were when you left, meaning you are going to have the same kind of relationships with family and friends. Everything is going to be as it was, and that's not true. First of all, because as we discussed before, you have evolved and you have developed a different mindset. So that kind of, you are not the same than when you left your country. And also your family, acquaintances, beloved ones, they are also evolving in different ways. So I can give you the example of on my relocation to Spain after living in Japan. So, when I left, I have a couple of very good buddies. We were always going out together. And then when I came back, both of them had girlfriends and they were close to get married. And, I found myself, out of space kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a difficult situation to deal with. So definitely my advice to, have those kind of situations is first of all, to stay in touch, to dive into the local culture that you are basically going to live in, but not to lose touch with your home culture. And that, of course, nowadays, thanks to technology, it's way easier. So you can have, weekly or monthly interactions with, your family and beloved ones in your home country, but also try to find, let's say, your own, let's say, community within your new destination of fellow countrymen and women that you can meet from time to time. So that helps you basically to be still in touch with your roots, with your home culture, and not to lose that kind of sight. And yeah, that was quite important to me. Yeah.
Perhaps a bit of a leading question, but I'd like to ask you, when I went to China for the first time, we had an accompanied team leader that would come check out. She was a therapist. It was amazing because they would come once every quarter to check on the team and individual interviews and all that kind of stuff. And before we all left, we had a debrief with her, and she sat down and she gave us tips and advice of like how to make, the best of the experience. We were only out there, I think, the assignment, which was originally for 1 year, wound up being 13, but that's how life goes. But the first assignment, she said, when you get to your new apartment, immediately the first day, unpack your suitcase and put it away. Put it under the bed, put it in a closet, put it somewhere where you can't see. And her reasoning was that when you're there, you want to be fully there. And you're going to miss home, you're going to miss your friends and things like that. But I wonder if an analogy in today's speak would be, should we put away the social media? Should we put away the Facebooks and the Instagrams and all that stuff? And all our friends from back home, I'm saying not forget them, but maybe to accept that we're not in their life at this stage. And do you think there's a benefit of having it with you? Is there a danger to have it with you? Or should people just say, hey, I need to move on from here and not follow, always constantly be thinking about being back home and how to connect with back home? Because you're right. Like before when I left, like to get a call back home to the US, it was like you had to go down the street. There was a guy that sold phone cards. You could buy a phone card from him and then go to the payphone and call. And it's like in what, 2 minutes, like the operator says you're running out of money and it closes down. Where now with FaceTime and with any of these tech tools, you can communicate so correctly. So what are your thoughts on that? How do you keep that balance between staying with the development and the life of friends back home, but also not avoiding where you are and disconnecting from where you are at the moment?
Yeah, so I guess that's, it's about finding the right balance. Indeed, as I said before, it's quite important to dive into, let's say, your new culture to be. So in that sense, I strongly advise, expats or people relocating to step out of their comfort zones, actually try to, meet locals, try to go out, explore the city, make the most of your stay in that new place, and also not make an excessive use of, social networks to communicate, with your basically with your home country. So it's I think it's quite okay to have, kind of weekly conversations, even bi-weekly conversations with your beloved ones back home. But yeah, in essence, I'm with you that basically you should focus more on building your network in that new place to be. And also, you need to be one needs to be aware that when you relocate, that it takes time to feel comfortable in that new location. So,
Mm.
it's in my experience, it takes about 3 to 5 months to actually feel comfortable in that new place. And that's the time you need basically to find your living space, building your kind of social network, getting used to responsibilities at work, all that. And when all that comes together, you actually have that kind of sense of accomplishment that actually one can get addicted to. So back to your question, I think it's important to focus on the present,
Mhm.
but also to have a kind of, slight connection to, your roots and your home country, always in a very constructive way. So, not, let's say, not focusing on negative thoughts such as how much I miss you guys, I
Yeah.
wish I was there, but
Which is
more of
easy to
a,
do, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's about being more focused on actually the learnings that you're getting from that new place. What are the things that you're discovering? What are the things that you're enjoying the most? So it's more of, being kind of constructive, positive in that communication with your home country, I would say.
Yeah. The last question I'd like to ask you, and this is more for the audience. Out of all the relocations that you've had, and the experiences, the friendships, the opportunities you've had in your career, what is some advice that you would leave for somebody if they're going on an assignment and they're excited, but they want to make the best out of the experience? What is some good advice that you could leave with them?
So I would say probably first of all, do your homework, as we said before. So do some research on basically on your new location. Actually, first of all, reflect on what do you like from your current location, and what can you expect from that new location, and actually assess whether that's a good opportunity for you first of all, and then give yourself some time. So based on experience, not only on my own experience but also on other people experiences, it takes about 3 to 5 months to basically get used to that new location and to feel comfortable. So that kind of process is full of ups and downs, and that's kind of normal. I haven't met any single expat who has not asked that famous question, what the hell am I doing here? So we all ask ourselves that question at some point in time. It's kind of normal, and it takes time to feel comfortable. So give yourself some time, step out of your comfort zone, try to explore that new location, try to meet people, expand your social network. That takes time. It's frustrating sometimes, but yeah, all in all, I mean, based on my experience and based on many people, many friends' experiences, I haven't seen anyone regretting from a relocation experience if you do things right, and if you basically ask for advice and support. And I think that's where a better goal can play an important role. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Vicente. It's fantastic to hear about your experience, learn from your stories, as well as my main takeaway is just give yourself grace, time to adapt, time to adjust, and it will take care of itself, so to speak. But don't try to rush the process. There's going to be hills, there's going to be valleys, and a 3 to 5 month process is absolutely appropriate. I mean, it's minimum. I think there's a statistic about a minimum of 100 days to get acquainted with a new location, which is pretty much exactly that time frame, and that's just the minimum point. So I love the idea of give yourself grace. There will be good days, there will be that bad days sometimes, unfortunately, but that's life. But just go through it and give yourself time to adjust. Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Michael. And yeah, thanks for having me at your podcast today. It's been a real pleasure. Yeah,
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you again. Have an awesome afternoon. Thank you for calling in from Germany. It's really cool to connect with you and learn about your experiences.
definitely. Thanks, Michael. Have a good day.